Next on Newsmax Prime, church burnings in the South and federal financial assistance to the victims' families from those church shootings in Charleston. Armstrong Williams and Michael Reagan react. Then, the networks have bailed, the hosts have quit, so who will see the Miss USA pageant next week? A former contestant will talk about it. Plus, more of our interview with Donald Trump. Tonight, he talks about defeating ISIS. Newsmax Prime starts now. Good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Of prime interest tonight, the Department of Justice and the Obama administration announced the fast-tracking of $29 million in payments to the victims' families of that mass shooting at the church in Charleston, South Carolina 2 weeks ago, awarding those families more than victims from Sandy Hook and from the Boston Marathon bombing. More on that in a moment. But first, accident or arson? 7 churches with predominantly black congregations have caught fire over the past week in 5 different southern states, including South Carolina. No one has been hurt, but some of those churches were completely destroyed, and now the FBI investigates. Meantime, a deacon and pastor from a burned-down church in Aiken County, South Carolina, told the local CBS affiliate they cannot believe this is happening.
I can't understand why. Because everything was new and everything was functioning good. We was in that last Sunday. Everything was practically new.
It didn't sink in right then, you know. When I got the call this morning, you know, I just sat down on the side of the bed for a while. Then I just got to put my clothes on and come on up here, you know. I couldn't believe it happened, you know. Oh, yeah, church going to stay together. Church going to stay together. We're going to, by the grace of God, we're going to get stronger.
For more on this story, we welcome in Armstrong Williams, host of the Armstrong Williams Show, as he Skypes in from Washington, D.C. Armstrong, thanks as always for your time here on Newsmax Prime. Now, Armstrong, the latest church fire in Greeleyville, South Carolina, was apparently not the work of arsonists, according to officials, but some of the other fires have indeed been deemed suspicious. Your take on what is transpiring?
You know, it's almost numbing and shocking that the house of worship could be reduced to mere ashes and debris. And it's easy for someone to assume whom the culprit may be and who would find it within themselves to find a reason to burn down these churches. I just think that the authorities must do their investigation and just bring these people to justice. It's just no excuse, and it's just and you ask yourself, is it ironic that the only churches that are being burned are churches in the black community? I mean, it would be easy to assume that it's some supremacy group or it's, some racist group, but we've known in the past where this happened a few years ago, where churches were burned, and we found the culprits to be someone within their own race. So to me, no matter what, to me, it's not the issue of the race of the person. It's the behavior and what they're doing. And it's the behavior that should be punished to the full extent of the law.
Of course, Armstrong's on the East Coast here. Let's move out west and also welcome in our good friend and political commentator, Michael Reagan, as he Skypes in from Los Angeles. As always, you can find and follow Michael on Twitter at Reagan World. Michael, you heard what Armstrong had to say. He's assuming nothing about this, but this whole situation, what does this mean for race relations in your mind?
Well, again, it depends on who the culprit is who's burning the churches. If it's somebody from my race, it's one thing. If it's somebody from Armstrong Williams, it's absolutely another. And we don't know. We don't know what's causing these churches to be burned in the black community. But I think everybody is appalled by it. And I think everybody's assuming that it is something to do with race. I mean, we had a racist walk into a church and kill 9 people. It's not hard to say, wouldn't another group go in and start burning black churches in that community? It is important. It is Race relations in this country are not as bad as people want to talk about. I just had lunch with a congressman, Democrat congressman here in Los Angeles, and we were talking about the fact that, when you turn on television, when do you see the black community uplifted? You always see, anger. You always see riots. You always see a black person being arrested. If we want to change race in America, maybe we need to start looking at people in a different way and start finding the good news like my father found in people instead of always looking just for the ratings purpose, the bad news.
Armstrong, your take on what Michael Reagan just had to say.
The media does reinforce these stereotypes of what it means to be black. And unfortunately, many kids grow up today in households where their parents sometimes tell them they're unworthy. They call them very demeaning names, and then they go out into the world and they hear these very things reinforced in communities and also by the media. And this is eventually what they become. They're not as fortunate as many of us who grew up with two strong parent household, was given a very strong identity, a very strong purpose, a work ethic, identity, self-worth. And when you don't have that being reinforced and encouraged, it doesn't matter what your race is. It's no secret what some people can become. That's why some people join gangs, because they cannot find the love of a father or the embrace of a father and a man, and they want a sense of belonging with other men, and they join these gangs, and these gangs exploit them, making them think that they're giving them love, and what they're doing is manipulating and controlling them for the worst common denominator. And so what we all have to do is examine ourselves. When we see anybody, no matter how they're dressed and what they look like, we must always acknowledge their humanity by saying good morning, how are you doing, to try to bring a smile on their face, because you never know what anger is just percolating within that person or what they have to deal with every day.
Let's talk go on very quickly, Michael, go ahead.
What Armstrong just saying. I mean, tonight, 20 million children go to bed tonight without a father in the home. You begin the process of what Armstrong was just talking about, what I talk about on a regular basis.
With the 2 minutes and 30 seconds that remain, let's turn to families in a related story. We mentioned it briefly earlier, the fact that the Obama administration has awarded $29 million to the victims' families of that mass shooting in Charleston 2 weeks ago. Now, this is how it compares with other financial packages. In the Aurora, Colorado movie theater shooting in 2012, $2.9 million awarded to families. In the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, $1.5 million. In the Boston Marathon bombing, $8.3 million for the people affected there. And as mentioned, with that horrible mass murder 2 weeks ago, $29 million in the South Carolina church shooting. Armstrong acknowledging that the value on human life, it's priceless. It doesn't make any difference in a sense, but to see government funds used for this purpose, is it the proper use of the money, and to that degree in terms of $29 million?
We always like to compare one to the other. All these situations are different, but we all value life, and all those lives were lost in a very tragic way. Including the church, especially in the house of worship. I don't know how the administration derived at these costs and these figures, but obviously some people think that money can help resolve some of the issues, especially when you've lost the head of a household. So, I don't get caught up in how much was divided among whom. Is that this is going to help these families heal and help them come to some kind of better understanding and move their families forward for the next several years. I just wouldn't stand in the way, because we cannot even begin to feel the depths of the pain and the loss, which never goes away, because when the public ceremony is over, these people are still left to come out of their shock, continue to suffer at the horrors of what mankind is capable of.
Michael Reagan, final 30 seconds to you for the last word on the financial compensation.
Well, absolutely. I'm going to sit there and not disagree with Armstrong. We don't know how they come up with the figures, but remember, $50 million went to Murrah Federal Building there in Oklahoma way back when in the Clinton administration. It also is an election year. So there's a lot of things that play into what is going on in Washington, but nobody's going to argue with helping out those families there in the Carolinas with what happened to them, that tragic, tragic murder that took place here a couple of weeks ago.
Gentlemen, we appreciate your insights, and again, we reiterate that whatever the sum, you cannot put a price on the loss that all these families from all these incidents experience. Michael Reagan, we find you on Twitter at Reagan World. Armstrong Williams, host of the Armstrong Williams Show. Our thanks to you both.